Hey everyone, it's John from Tadah Foods. This is the second video in our series that I've dubbed Tadah with Friends because I want this to be me as I would be when I have a dinner party or friends over and I'm cooking some food that I hope everyone will enjoy, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them as well. But before we get started, I want to share some really exciting news, and that is for those of you that live in the mid-Atlantic and the southern part of the United States on the East Coast. Tadah is now available at your local Harris Teeter stores. So if you have a Harris Teeter near you or a place where you shop, you can find not only our falafel street wraps, but also our gluten-free stuffed falafel poppers in the frozen section of your Harris Teeter store. So if you're out there, obviously stay safe and pick up a couple of products and let us know what you think of them in the comment section. Okay, so on to the recipe. A Mediterranean rice salad, and it might be foreign to some of you, but it's going to use a staple that we all have in our home, which is rice. I don't know of any ingredient that is more ubiquitous, other than maybe salt, than rice. And rice in its simplest form is almost perfect, right? And growing up in Queens, my mom, she made a fresh cooked dinner every single dinner. I know that's less and less common, but I would say for 100% of those meals, rice was included, right? There would be some rice, some vegetable dish, some salad or something, but there was always white rice at the table. But we're gonna jazz it up, right? We're gonna add a little flavor. We're gonna liven it up and make it something that you could put your own spin on. What I'm giving you here are the basics. Right, let's start with our fat in this dish, okay? And this is gonna be our extra virgin olive oil. I've had many different variations of this dish growing up over the years, and sometimes they tend to be a little too oily or a little too heavy, even with the use of extra virgin olive oil. And so when developing my version of the recipe, I wanted to have that balance, that suppleness, that mouthfeel of the olive oil, but I didn't want it to weigh down the dish because this should be a light dish. This is great for the summer. It's great for picnics, which hopefully, I'm counting the days to when we can safely get back out there and enjoy the fresh air and have a picnic. So in this dish, we're going to use a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Very simple here. I'm going to just measure this out right over here. Now, if you don't have extra virgin olive oil, you can use regular olive oil. You can use your favorite oil. 1/4 cup is where I find the right balance and ratio for this dish. But again, do it to your taste. All right. You've heard it before. Cooking is about balance. You probably heard it time and time again. And whenever you have a fat component in your dish, it's always good to have an acid. That acid will cut through that fat a little bit and helps you to receive that fat on your palate and on your tongue even better. And so in this dish, we're using citrus for our form of acid. Other forms of acid can be vinegar, but for this dish, we're going to do some lemon juice here. I've got my lemons right here. But one of the ways that we're going to punch up that lemon and that citrus flavor is we're going to use some of the zest. Now, the skin of a fruit like a lemon or an orange, it's comprised of 2 parts. The zest, which is the outer, most colorful part here, and then the white part underneath, which is the pith. Now, the pith doesn't really have a lot of flavor and has a lot of bitterness, but the zest has the essential oils and carries all those beautiful aromas and flavors. And so, this is a little cooking tip. If you want to punch up your dish or add more of the flavor of the citrus that you're using, whether it be lime or orange, use some of that zest. And my preferred tool for that is a microplane. If you don't have that, you can use a paring knife to kind of scrape away some of this and then finally mince it up. But I'm just going to take it here. I'm going to show you. We're going to zest it, and you don't want to go, you just want to get that outer yellow part. You want to minimize how much of the pith you have. All right, and you can see here we're revealing the white of the skin for the fruit, of the peel of the fruit. And you want about a teaspoon, all right? And this looks to be just about right here, the teaspoon here. All right, the microplane makes quick work of that. Okay. And I promise as these videos progress, I'm gonna get better at smiling and being my normal self. I tend to be a little bit nervous on camera, and I'm a horrible multitasker. I'm usually singularly focused at the task at hand, which when I'm running my company at Tadah means I'm really good at, you know, zoning in and locking in on something, and then when I'm done with that task, I switch gears. But here you go, got a teaspoon of the zest right there, and that's there. And then for the juice, we're going to use 2 tablespoons of the juice, all right? Awkward silence while I squeeze a lemon because obviously it's using up the majority of my brain power. I don't think anyone's gonna find that funny except for me. All right. So here we go. Let me make sure that we don't lose some of the pits in there. All right. Okay, so now we want to add a really important element to this dish, and that is spice. Spices, spice. I love the word spice because, like the word zest, it kind of denotes by its sound, you know, what it is. And in ethnic cuisine, spice gives the dishes that you make their unique flavors. And in Middle Eastern cuisine, East Mediterranean cuisine, there's some common spices that are used time and time again. Cumin being one, cinnamon, coriander. Then there's some spice blends like a 7-spice blend or allspice. And these are the spices that are used time and time again. Sumac is used often in East Mediterranean cuisine. For this dish, we're gonna use a ½ teaspoon of spice. And again, I wanna give you guys flexibility because you may not have these spices on hand. You could use a ½ teaspoon of cinnamon. You can use a ½ teaspoon of coriander or a 7-spice mix if you have it. For my version, I'm gonna use a ¼ teaspoon of cinnamon and a ¼ teaspoon of 7-spice mix. I think it gives it a nice, you know, Middle Eastern flavor, and that's what you want. It's an East Mediterranean rice salad. So let's just go ahead and add that in right here. Okay, so that's going in with our oil, our lemon juice, and our lemon zest. Again, if you don't have lemons, try lime. If you have fresh oranges, use some fresh oranges. We want to make this simple. Use the things that you have at home. Let's move on to the next main component in our dish, and that's going to be the aromatics and the herbs. Aromatics are classified as like the green onions, the garlic, the shallots that you might add to the dish. And the herbs, in this particular case, is going to be parsley. And if you've ever had one of our products, a lot of people will comment on how fresh they taste. And that's because we're using fresh herbs and aromatics when we put them together. Dried spices have their place, but whenever possible, try to use fresh herbs and aromatics. And we're going to do for this Mediterranean rice salad, we're going to have 4 scallions right here. I'm going to trim the tops off of these. And a lot of time, people will ask me, how much of the scallion do you use? I like to use as much of it as I can. And which means going into the green. Some recipes call for just using the whites of the scallions. You know, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes type of thing. I'll go maybe all the way through the green part and just leave the drier, you know, last inch or 2 of the stalk, of the green stalk. And again, we're going to give this a nice chop right here. And then add that to our vinaigrette, if you will, that's developing nicely with all of the other ingredients. I've got some freshly washed parsley here, and I'm going to use about a ¼ cup of a rough chopped parsley. You don't have to pulverize it and mince it into a paste here. Part of the appeal of this salad is the distinct textural elements that you're going to be adding to it, the nuts and the parsley and the scallions. Now, if you don't have parsley, or let's say you prefer cilantro, use cilantro. If you want dill, use dill. Just use an herb that you think will match well with the flavors that we're putting together. And this is a dish that's so simple to pull together that I'm positive you guys are gonna make it more than once. And every time, put a different spin on it, you know, experiment and really fine tune it and have fun with it, because cooking should be fun. And we're at home a lot and we're doing a lot more home cooking. And you know, I think we should be having fun with our cooking. That's just me. All right, so I'm gonna do a 1/4 cup diced. So you just wanna give your parsley a rough chop here. Okay, that's about 1/4 cup. I'm gonna put that in there. You wanna measure it. You know, if you're not as comfortable in the kitchen and you like the security of measuring things, I think that's really important. I would, it's been well chronicled that a lot of mothers who have their favorite dishes, when you ask them for the recipe, they will tell you, you know, a little bit of this, you know, in Arabic, they'll say, habba keda wa shwaya keda. It's, you know, just a pinch of this, a little handful of that. And even with my mom or my grandmother, when I would watch them intently growing up, and I would stop them and I would even measure things out, when I try to recreate the dish on my own, it always came out different. And then I would watch them again and compare it with the notes that they gave me, and there was always a different ingredient that they left out, you know, conveniently left out. And so measure, especially if you're just, you know, new to cooking or you're not as comfortable in the kitchen, measure your ingredients. It'll give you a consistent result. And then as you get more confident, you can, you know, start to freestyle a little bit. You'll be able to eyeball a 1/4 cup of things. Now this dish calls for about 3/4 cup, I think is the amount. Yeah, 3/4 cup of a dried fruit. And a typical dried fruit that you would see featured in this dish would be dates that, you know, might have been roughly chopped, or some raisins. Golden raisins are very popular in the Middle East, but I didn't have either of those. So I'm using a combination of just regular raisins, and I had some crasins in here. And I'm not even gonna give them a chop, all right? Because, you know, this is something I wanna throw together really quickly during the work week, something to serve on the side, you know, with maybe, you know, some protein that you might have, or if you're eating plant-based, you might have some seared or seasoned tofu, or it could go on the side of, you know, some of our falafel poppers. So I've got 3/4 cup, a mix here of crasins and raisins. I'm just gonna put this right here into the bowl. Really simple. All right, we are at our second to last ingredient, and it's an important one. It's the nuts that we're gonna add. And that's very typical of East Mediterranean rice salads, is that they will have nuts. And this is important for a lot of reasons. I often talk about how ethnic cuisine is centered around using readily available, locally sourced ingredients and making things as flavorful and as nutritious as possible. That's the approach we take at Tadah. And when you're eating plant-based, you need a variety of protein sources to get a complete protein. And nuts are a great source of plant-based proteins and also healthy fats. And pistachios are the most common ingredient that you would add to this dish. I didn't have enough pistachios. Again, this is some pantry cooking that we're doing here. Cashews also feature very heavily in these type of dishes. In fact, you'll often see 2 or 3 or more types of nuts in these dishes, and they usually put them in whole and large. For me, you know, unlike with the dried fruit where I think a raisin is the right size, I think scooping up a whole cashew into your mouth might be a little, you know, a little bit much for me. I think it'll overwhelm some of the other textures in the dish and the flavors. So I'm gonna give these a rough chop and then add them into the rest of our base here. Okay, we've added all of our ingredients, and now it's time to add our final ingredient, and that is the rice. It's 1 cup of rice cooked, all right? And you let it cool. And I'm just gonna add it in here to our dish. And now I'm just gonna add some salt. Let's give this a little bit of salt here. And let's mix. We got our tongs here, and I'm just gonna start giving this a good mix here. And get all of the ingredients incorporated. This looks beautiful. this is one of those dishes where the flavors come together and they marry really well once they've had a time to sit. And so this is something that I'll make in advance and just have it at the ready. This looks so amazing. I'm gonna plate it up here soon for you guys. But yeah, give the flavor some time to melt and come together. All right. Such a pretty dish. All right, well, there you have it. This is the finished dish. Look how beautiful that is. I just took a couple of sprigs of parsley just to garnish, and I drizzled a little bit of pomegranate molasses. I'm pretty sure most of you do not have that in your pantry, but if you want to, it's obviously perfectly good on its own. You can always drizzle some tahini onto it, or if you've got a balsamic glaze, if you want to add a little bit more flavor to it, but on its own, this is perfect. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Please let us know your thoughts and your comments below, and give us some feedback. This is something that I know will require some time and some work to really get it into a format that you guys enjoy, but hope you guys enjoy the dish. Stay safe, everyone, and thank you.